This is Sportish.
Do it better.
This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish.
This is Sportish. Welcome in, everybody, to the Cal Ripken Iron Man of sports shows. We do not take a week off, come act of God or otherwise. My name is Geoff Brault. He's Dr. Keith Strudler, runs the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University. We thank you for hanging out with us, whether it's on For the Fans, FTFnext.com, YouTube, or wherever it is you get your audio podcast. Right off the top, Keith, I had to risk life and limb to put this show on. I now live in an urban, walkable core, right, as evidenced by the chic downtown loft in which I am broadcasting from this afternoon, morning. No one knows when this show was originally released. And here's a big problem, Keith. A big problem that I have now, that I live in a walkable community. Sometimes it rains, and sometimes it rains really, really hard, like it's been doing today, which meant that we had to delay this taping almost 90 minutes, which meant that you almost threw in the towel. You almost said, we're not doing it.
No, I didn't
do it.
No,
but I persevered for the people.
You said, well, let's just call it in. And by the way, you put me then in an awkward situation because I'm the one who has to mail it and be like, hey, sorry, we couldn't come through this week. Like you bear none of the responsibility. You take none of the responsibility. So I said, first I'm going to call Jay Friedman. Right. And Jay Friedman, for a guy who wants to be the fill-in host of Sportish, he's really slow on the trigger. So he should be ready at the waiting. I mean, he should be literally sitting, waiting, ready to go. So I said, nope, let's keep doing it. And finally, you made it home. And it's much worse on my end. And I'll tell you why. I do all the post-production work, like I do all the work. And I also got to get up at 5 a.m. to do all the things that I have to do in my life, like get the kids to school, take care of my body, all that stuff. So you are probably, you're in a walkable community, but guess what they have in walkable communities? They have Ubers, they have Lyfts.
Yeah, those were.
You don't have to walk. It's not a requirement. You don't live in that new utopian thing which I hope we're going to talk about today. That new utopian village where they only have slow moving cars and bicycles. That's a terrible idea, but I hope we're going to get into that.
You know how some people say you can't put a price on a friendship, or like you can't put a price on doing something like the opportunity that we have to bring Sportish to the people every week? Turns out you can, and that price is $29.55, which is what they wanted to charge me to take an Uber from where I was to my house. So somewhere in that range is what this is worth to me every week.
So Sportish was probably a $15 situation, because you're not just getting the Uber. You're not just getting to do the show. You also then get a load off your back. They drive you home. You get a little something out of it. So, Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't walking, a marathon of distance. It was, less than a mile, which is another reason why I didn't feel compelled to pay the
$29. So
$30.
They're gouging you on the rain, right? But I'll tell you what, I'm not a big fan of how that works. That's capitalism at its worst. I'll tell you that much. They really take it to you.
We had to persevere to do this episode because, Keith, one of our heroes fell last weekend. In the Sportish world, there were few people who we held in higher esteem than Lane Kiffin, who completed perhaps the most Herculean of labors.
By the way, I believe, if I'm not sure if this has been officially, I believe it's Saint Lane Kiffin. I'm not sure if he's been sitting.
If you can get 100% of your population, in his case, it is the Ole Miss football team, to be vaccinated against COVID-19 in the state of Ole Mississippi, you should be a candidate for statehood. Yeah. And we certainly elevated Lane Kiffin to deity status here on Sportish a couple of weeks ago. Well, Keith Strudler, pour some out for our fallen homie, because Lane Kiffin got COVID. I mean, what a kick in the pants. This is why we can't have nice things.
He is in the truest biblical sense, he is Moses. He's modern day Moses. He literally brought the people to the promised land. And then as he's about to enter, God said, not so fast, my friend. These folks, those who were literally praying to the golden cow while you're up there getting scared to death because God's burning a bush in front of you, right? Literally, like, what's going on? So scared that you drop 5 of the commandments. If you've seen, of course, the Mel Brooks version.
Yes, the 15, no, 10 commandments. Sure, we've all seen History of the World.
And then you finally get these people to the promised land, and God's like, not so fast. You're staying in Egypt or whatever that purgatory. So he's stuck in the desert. Same thing happens here. Lane Kiffin literally brings his team to the promised land. He brings the non-believers. He brings the Ole Miss football team to 100% vaccination rate. That is a number that is unimaginable in the SEC. The SEC will only know how to get to 100 when they get to their 100th team. That's the only time. And so, meanwhile, he brings the team there and he's ready to go to his big coming out party, a Monday night primetime game. He's the only show in town. And who's not there? Lane Kiffin, who's home with COVID. It is such bitter irony. It's not fair. It's not right. I feel like we should start a GoFundMe for Lane Kiffin, who, to be fair, does not need the money.
Illuminated for us that COVID has taken so much away from society. It doesn't care whether you're a hero or a villain. It doesn't care how you used to do things. It doesn't care what a societal norm used to be. And Keith Strudler, you and I went back and forth this week on just how much we are both struggling with tipping in the COVID world. And that means tipping at a restaurant or for a takeout order, because the way things used to be are not the way things are now. And our feeble minds cannot handle this new process.
Well, I think we've both come to the crux of the issue. And everyone, the legions of fans who are watching right now, I think you understand where we're coming from. Obviously, the restaurant world was shattered. And I like you, I'm a fairly generous tipper. I mean, I don't think I don't think people see me come and be like, oh, Mr. Strudler.
and I will say, I do not like to say, one of the good things about the pandemic, because let's be honest, there is really no good things about the pandemic. Everything would have been better had this not happened. But one of the things that I personally like about the pandemic and that has made me feel better about myself is I went from someone who used to get a lot of takeout because of 2 reasons. 1, I cannot cook, and 2, I am extremely lazy, to now someone who is, 1, supporting my community, and 2, saving jobs every time I go out and get a cheeseburger.
So I obviously it's easier for you to be a generous tipper, and you almost don't deserve credit when you're single and you're only buying for yourself. The 20% or whatever it is, it's a lot different when you got the family of 40 here.
Sure. So that's ridiculous. Don't blame your problems on me. That is a ridiculous point that has nothing to do with me.
Oh, it has a lot to do with it.
Just because I made good choices does not mean that you get to take out your anger on me.
Nope. It means you are selfish. And so we're accustomed to, leaving that tip. Now, I will also say when COVID first hit and restaurants were decimated, I think all of us, once we got through the initial shock of we're all going to die tomorrow, let's end it. Let's just eat nothing but lard and butter fat for the next, because why not? A lot of people probably put on 20, 30 pounds real fast because when they thought the world was ending, and then they realize, oh, I'm stuck with that now, right?
Like the scene in Almost Famous when they think the plane's going down, so they confess everything they need to say before they die, and then it turns out that they just pull out of the turbulence, and now, oh boy, I got to deal with this hellscape that I've created for myself. No, I get it.
So I was pretty comfortable with leaving a nice tip for takeout, right? Because I'm like, look, they're losing their revenue. We got to support this, and leaving a significant tip for obviously you're not eating in the restaurant. And that revenue wasn't available to them. Now, obviously restaurants have opened up in a variety of different ways, right? You can, if you want to take your life in your own hands, you can sit inside the restaurant. That's fine. So if that's how you like to share your time with your friends and neighbors, that's great. Obviously, the outdoor dining is wonderful. I'm a big fan of the outdoor dining. I prefer outdoor dining and preferred outdoor dining even before we got to COVID. That's great as well. But then, of course, we have also still have the opportunity to do takeout. Now, takeout has not gone away, right? It's still takeout. The problem is some of those habits that we developed in the height of COVID, when we really, the only way we could support our restaurants was through these tips. Now that same mechanism still seems to be available and in many cases almost encouraged. So normally in pre-COVID times, if you were to do takeout and you drove yourself up to the pizza place, to the whatever it is, were you leaving a tip?
I would throw $1 in the jar, but I'm not leaving 20%.
Okay, but the problem is now.
Yes, it is.
Now.
This is the problem.
And I confronted this face on this week. The problem is now twofold. And I'll tell you the one example, and then I'll tell you the even more insidious. So you order online at whatever the restaurant's website, and you're about to check out, and next thing you know, there's a "Would you like to leave a tip?" Mm-hmm. And the numbers are not for the faint of heart. They usually start at 15%. That is
just for clarity's sake, you're talking about the new iPad system that exists in almost every restaurant.
I'm just talking about it. Yeah. Well, I'm talking about when you're at home before you even get to the if you're just going to,
you're on the app or you're ordering from your computer. You're on there. You're pre-tipping at this point. You're tipping before you even know to get your order right.
I don't even know what I'm getting. So, but you know what I do know? Here's what I do know. They're going to see that. They're going to see that before they even start this. Let me tell you what. So you got to do a 15% tip for nothing. I almost want them to come to my house and serve me. Now, I would be happy if even, this is nothing short of a shakedown, by the way. It's nothing short of a shakedown. I would be happy if I got to the restaurant and I said, look, I am taking this home, but could you just open up one of the containers and just put it in my mouth? Just give me a little taste. If they would allow me unmasked and just scoop out one whatever it is and give it to me, I'd feel fairly validated. So you have to do it. Now, that's bad. But what's even worse now is you go to the restaurant. It could be like a Chipotle or no offense to but any of those kinds of restaurants, a fast casual. You walk up, you're literally just going to pick it up and take it with you. And you order, and then they flip over the iPad.
Yeah.
The iPad.
Where I have the big problem. Yeah, because unlike you, I am not doing a lot of pre-tipping, right? I am not doing a lot of let me tip at the time of order. I will tip at the time of pickup. So I do think you're making a bit of a misstep with the pre-tip.
So am I falling? Am I falling for this? Am I just falling?
I think you should tip if you're picking up, right? You should obviously pre-tip if you're getting some sort of delivery, and then
I'm prepaying. I'm prepaying.
That's a problem. Why are you prepaying? Why not pay when you get
That's
there?
That's what it requires you to do. It requires you to do it. That's how it works. They know this. They know.
It sounds like they've got you over a barrel. I'm lucky again, as mentioned, urban downtown walkable core.
I understand.
Where I can actually, as I visit the restaurant, I'll be like, oh no, I'll just swipe my card when I get there.
Don't pretend you live in Soho, by the way. All right.
But now look, the swiping of the card.
If you walk about a mile outside, you're no longer in walkable. So don't make it sound like you're.
The swiping of the card is also fraught with peril. And this is the point you're about to make, and it is all because of the technology involved. Yeah. The iPad has become my great nemesis. The iPad restaurant payment tipping system has become perhaps my new enemy number one. We have done some real battles, iPad tipping system and I, over the past couple months.
So when it flips over, you know how much you're about to spend, and then it gives you the 4 options, the 3 or 4 options.
Oh, yeah.
And not only are you going to have to, and by the way, I don't know what happens when you flip it back around.
Correct.
I don't know.
Correct. And now look, I have gone, because of that very fact, I've done 2 things. I have done the tip, wait for the screen to go away, and then flip it back. But I've also done the opposite. When I've left a very generous tip, I flip that screen so darn fast because I want them on the. I need them to look at it on the other side and be like, "Our hero has returned."
Or we're gonna, we'll have maybe like a large soft drink instead. Like you like a little something on the back end of that. I am 100%. So I'm with you, but there's not only that. So I don't know that's the moment I get really tense when it's flipping and I don't know, like when they're standing, I like, you should be walking away doing something, right? The other problem is that's a very public experience you're having. So quite often, you are now revealing your inner soul to the rest of your township, right? And that is very, very demoralizing. And so, I mean, look, let's say you're at a donut shop and you don't tip. Well, and we all know this. In that display of donuts, they're the best donuts. And then they're the ones that maybe didn't come out exactly, a little bit less glaze, right? It's a human that's making the donut. It's not a machine. It's just a human. I mean, I almost figure they're going to be like, well, that one's 3 hours old. He's getting that donut. I just don't feel comfortable. I don't know. And I don't know how to solve this problem either. I don't know.
Slightly off topic. Have you ever been in a group situation, right? A split check situation, and it comes time to tip, right?
I know where you're going here. I know where you're going here.
Have you ever looked over the shoulder of the other person with the check to see what they're tipping?
I'll tell you what. So this is a test of the relationship. If it's a close friend, you have to say, what are you leaving? You have to do it. Now, if this is the real awkward, and you're not in this situation all that often, new couple you're going out with. That's because this is...
Yeah.
And I mean, there's all sorts of scenarios. Like I've also been in the scenario where you end up going to a restaurant that's more expensive than you wanted to go to. So you're already in the hole for like.
Yeah, it's amazing how quick the $16 cocktails add up. Again, as mentioned, urban walkable core, chic loft. This is a scenario that comes up in my world.
Like, you're 2 bills in the hole. You're like, and by the way, I'm also one of those guys. It's like, I'm a big, like, let's just split it evenly. Well, the problem is I don't drink and I don't eat meat. And so I'm paying for that guy's slaughterhouse.
This is why I like going out to dinner with you, because I'm going to get the T-bone and, a couple nice glasses of Chablis, and you're over there. I don't drink Chablis, by the way. If there's any wine people in our audience, I just pick Chablis because to me, it's the most funny wine to say. I would never drink Chablis. If you're a Chablis person, I'm sorry. Please try to do better. There are other wines that exist. But anyway, Keith has a water and a Caesar salad. I'm going to get the T-bone.
No, I don't have
and
a Caesar salad.
Of wine.
Caesar salad's the one salad that's not vegetarian. It's got anchovies.
No, anchovies on a Caesar salad. It's terrible. Terrible.
But it's in the dressing. And anchovies in the dressing.
You kick them in the face.
But it's in the dressing. Anchovies in the dressing.
Well, look, you can have a little fish.
You're now the arbiter of what constitutes the moral high ground of vegetarian. Look, I grant vegetarians 1 hamburger a week.
Now back to the plight of the technology of the iPad.
Yeah.
Here's problem number 1 in my world. It's never the same system when they flip that screen over. So you don't ever get to come up with a schema in your mind for how to handle the screen flip, because the first thing you're confronted with is, what system am I looking at? They're all different. So you got to study this thing like it's the Rosetta Stone. Yeah. And here's the other problem. I think restaurants have started to get wise to people just touch a button. So they're jacking up the numbers on the button. Yeah. To the point where I went and I got like a $10 or something or other, and the smallest amount that I could tip on the screen was $5. And I'm like, well, this is lunacy. This is lunacy.
I've seen this at haircut places. Where they say a good tip is, and it starts with like $8. I'm like, that's a great tip.
Another good tip is don't park next to the fire hydrant. The worst thing you can do, because as you mentioned, this is a very public issue. And apologies to anyone who came here looking for sports chat. Maybe not the show for you.
By the way,
Sportish for a reason.
Newsflash. Jay, you're always $1 short and a day late. Sure. Sorry. Yes, I'm free. Oh, boy, he missed it. He really missed it. He needs to learn to be ready. Like, he needs to learn to be present. Like, that's his fallback. I mean, that's his failing. Is that what he does in the hospital?
Imagine if, when the Yankees were going to take out Wally Pipp and put in Lou Gehrig, if Lou Gehrig didn't answer the call for 20 minutes, what would have happened then?
I'm gonna text him right now while we're doing the show. Sorry.
Okay, this should be great television.
He made it back in time.
While you're doing that text, I will mention what has become my biggest issue with the iPad tipping system when it flips over. That is when they make the numbers too big for a tip, and then you have to go searching for the custom tip button.
Oh, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. It really is. It's like sitting at the kids' table. It's absolutely emasculating. It's not, none of us should be proud of that. So look, I assume that at least 80% of our audience is in the service industry. So I don't know. Because I figure they've thrown back a few cocktails after work and they just are too incapacitated to change the channel. And so
we air, of course, at possibly 10 in the morning. So yeah, I think your theory holds water.
Now, do you think that we're on in any restaurants? Do you think that's ever happened? I'd love that.
I would love that. I mean, first of all, what kind of TV package does that restaurant have to have where we're one of the options? Like, I mean, imagine like just the financial difficulty just to get like the NFL package. How much are you shelling out to get the Sportish package?
The Sportish is free. So that is quite much.
This is the restaurant that I want to be in. I want to be in the restaurant that is too cheap to pay for any sort of pay television. So the closest that they can get to putting live sports onto their screens is us. That is exactly the bar that I want to be in on. Yeah.
Don't look for name brand liquor. Do not look for name brand liquor. So at any rate, so yes, this is a national problem. And I don't like to lay it on the backs of the service industry folks. They don't get paid well, but
not their fault.
It's not their fault, but I'm telling you, we're all suffering right now. And there's got to be a way out of this.
Other technology that we've gone to war with over the years is now that we've added restaurant iPads to our list of robot enemies is robot umpires. And Keith Strudler, we are both big U.S. Open fans. I both golf and tennis. You more tennis. You actually went to the U.S. Open recently.
I was at the Open Saturday night. It was fantastic. Wonderful evening.
That means that you saw tennis matches that were being officiated by robot line judges.
I love it.
They're taking over, Keith. There's robots that are calling balls and strikes in minor league baseball, and now there are robots that are determining whether the tennis ball is in or out.
And I'll tell you what's interesting about it is, first of all, it's changed the nature of the game because you can see these players want to get angry at someone, and there's no one. Like, who would John McEnroe be if he were in this era? Like, there would be no one to get angry at, right? And so there's that moment when it's a close call, and you can see like he wants to get angry, and there's just nothing to do. There's literally the only person we've gotten heard angry, and we'll talk about this later, of course, is Andy Murray, who was a little angry about a potty break, and that's a totally different.
You did. You jumped the line a little bit about the other big issue that's plagued the U.S. Open. But imagine how tennis history would be different if instead of John McEnroe slamming his racket and screaming, "You cannot be serious," he looked at a robot and was like, "Bleep blurp," which is, I imagine, how you yell at a robot.
So they're always right. And by the way, they're always right.
They are always right.
They're always right.
The best technology that we have in sports is not VAR and soccer. The best technology that we have in sports is the chase cam, the in or out cam. That thing is stunningly accurate, stunning. And it's amazing how quickly they get to their decision. Everybody gets to do a little clap. They get to do a little chase cam clap.
But they don't have to do it anymore.
On the screen.
But they don't have to do it. It's automatic. Everything happens now. They just don't. There is no close call anymore. It's automatic. The ump just calls. Like the ump is now a trained monkey. Like he's just there being like.
They're not putting the animation on the screen?
They do, but it's just to show you that a close call happened because everything is happening. The refs, if I understand this correctly, and it seemed to be affirmed in what I was watching, the refs are simply getting the call from the machines and affirming it. That's all they're there for. They are quality control at this point. When there is a close call, because a lot of times I'm like Elliot did this like 18 different times once we're watching. He does it on TV too. He's like, "Oh, that was out." I'm like, "It wasn't out." And he's like, "Well, how do you know?" I was like, "Because it's not out, because the machines are never wrong." And so they're never wrong. And when there's a close call, just to show the fans like, "Oh, this is what it was," they'll put it up on the screen to show you. But they don't even, there's not even that, dude. There's not even the like,
so we don't get the clap anymore?
No, that's over. It is all machines. So by the way, you take a player like Novak Djokovic, who literally is the most automatic, like machine-like player of all time in one of these systems. It's just like watching Robot Wars. There's nothing left. So I happen to like it quite a bit. What would be interesting to me is if they started to take the line judges out altogether. Like if they're just like, you know what, we don't even need that guy sitting up there.
It does. So I'm guessing that it also eliminates one of my favorite pieces of sports choreography on earth, the changing of the judges. When they march out in their little uniform and a new group of what looks like teenagers march in their little Ralph Lauren uniforms.
Well,
and
they still have the ball boys. They still can do the ball boys. The balls don't pick themselves up. Although, to be quite honest, ball boys, you're next. Like, I think you've just been spared because you're cute little kids. This is,
I mean, I can't believe that line judges went before ball boys. Like, we have Roombas. Like, we cannot be that far away as a civilization from eliminating the ball boy.
And by the way, how much is Djokovic like? You take away the line judge now? Like, could we not have done this a year ago? Could have saved me a lot of aggravation.
What is your U.S. Open viewing strategy? We're, of course, a national show. We are on accidentally in living rooms and computers throughout the nation. So a lot of people in this country don't have the opportunity to go to the U.S. Open because it takes place in New York. It is one of the most unique sporting events that you can attend. It requires a strategy to go to the U.S. Open. What is your U.S. Open strategy?
Well, obviously, COVID kind of changed the narrative a little bit for me this year because I was with my 11-year-old who, because he's 11, is not yet vaccinated. By the way, not for nothing. I'm very thankful that the U.S. Open has, required everyone over the 12 and over to be vaccinated. I would like if maybe, I understand it's a tough job, those that are checking the vaccine cards actually looked at them. I could have handed them a Costco card. I could have handed them a coupon to McDonald's. Like, I could have handed them a note from Epstein's mom. That's a Welcome Back, Kotter reference. I mean, it really could have done anything. They're like, yep, you're good. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, this wasn't like the person who got caught in the airport for misspelling Moderna. Did you hear about that one?
I did.
This isn't like that. They never even got to that. If you have something that's in the shape of a cardboard with lines on it that's in a plastic thing, you're golden. And then Elliot, I was like, well, I had his passport to prove he was under 12. They're like, whatever. He looks young. And so that's not for nothing. Just something to consider for next time, for the next pandemic. So we were a little bit kind of jaded by, I don't want Elliot or me, for the most part, sitting in a huge crowd, right? And so we were on Saturday evening. So we were trying to avoid the big crowds. That's A. B, we were on Saturday, so we're already in the third round. So it wasn't as just overflowing as you'd have in the first couple of rounds, where literally you just go place to place to place, and you're getting into the doubles at that point. So my strategy largely at that point was hunker down and find a place where we could kind of spread out a little bit outdoors. So that kind of drove it. That led us to the grandstand court. And the grandstand court is my favorite court. Seats about 8,000, but doesn't feel anything like it.
It's a great court.
And they put kind of the best matches. They don't put the top match, which often still in the third round is lopsided because you haven't yet cleared out necessarily like the top, there's still a big delta. You get to that grandstand court and you're getting like a 17 ranked versus like a 32 or 33 or a hot up and comer who's kind of, in the 50s. You get some hot matches and you can hear them, you can see them, like you can feel the intensity of that. So generally speaking, I like to start at the beginning of a match if I can. I like to get that first set or two in because that lets, like, I know a lot of people chase the fifth sets. That's fine. To me, it's more fun to see it develop a little bit. And then generally speaking, I'll go a set or two and then I'll leave, find something else. And then I'll figure out if that thing's going to go the distance and I'll go back. So that's how I like to get to the start of matches because I feel like that gives me a real sense of watching them kind of play their way into it. And it's fun to watch them kind of feel each other out a little bit. I like to get to a little bit. So we were looking for empty space. I like to get to the doubles a little bit. I like to watch that because it's really, really good in person. It really, because it's just, it's nuts and you can get close up.
My two best U.S. Open moments were both with doubles. I mean, obviously, look, whenever I go, I, of course, have Ash tickets because, as mentioned, bougie urban loft. Of course, I will have access to your Serenas and your Federers and your Nadals.
I've been in a suite. I have been underneath in the tunnel standing next to Jimmy Connors. That's, by the way, true story. We were there. Like I was there with, it's like an IBM thing. And we walked by and this was, years ago. And I literally walked shoulder to shoulder with Jimmy Connors. And I guess I have like so much of a crush on Jimmy Connors. I started blushing like and sweating.
Allow me to now one up your story. I went to the Travelers Championship, a golf tournament in Cromwell, Connecticut, outside of Hartford earlier this year, and stood shoulder to shoulder with Paulina Gretzky. So I win and you lose.
I don't know about that. Were you sweating? Because that would have been more awkward.
Yeah, and listen, when you see a human that attractive, right, it changes you. Like they aren't the same as us. Like they don't belong in the species or whatever. You're like, we're not the same.
Well, maybe
so it does make you uncomfortable.
Maybe we don't belong.
No.
Do you think when they look at us, they're like, oh my God, look at that ape. Like
Now, when I've been to the US Open, my two best doubles moments. One, we were on Ash, and as you mentioned, sometimes in the early rounds, I think this was a round of 16, very lopsided. Poor Serena Williams just bludgeoning some lady from Estonia. It was over very quickly. So we booked it out of Ash to Armstrong to catch the Coco Gauff and Catherine McNally, I believe that's her name. This was the year that Makoko was huge because Coco Gauff had won a couple, started making a run in the singles as like a 15-year-old or whatever. So she was the darling of the tournament. And then they were having a deep doubles run with this other young American, Catherine McNally. So we caught Makoko at its peak. They actually won that doubles match in dramatic comeback fashion against, I believe, the squad seeded 10th. They were unseeded, and the stadium was going crazy. I mean, there was Makoko fever all over Armstrong, and that was a very, very neat thing to be a part of.
Yeah. Now I'm not a big fan of Ash, even if you're down. I mean, it's better if you're in a suite or down. It's not intimate. It doesn't feel right to me. I don't like, honestly, I mean, this is getting really sportsy all of a sudden. I hate, and I understand why they built it. I hate the dome. Like even when it's open, it took away the sense of being in place and outdoors. I really don't like that feeling where it's kind of half caving over you a little bit. It's like I'm in the old Texas football stadium. I don't like it at all. So Armstrong's a better situation, but if it's up to me, I'm in the outer courts, just kind of lounge around, spread myself out.
My other favorite doubles moment of the US Open happened on Grandstand. I mean, this was early. It's like 11 a.m. First match of the day. There's hardly anyone there. So we're 3 rows from the court on Grandstand. Sure. Random doubles match featuring 4 players that I have never heard of. Couldn't tell you any of their names. But we find out very early that we are sitting directly behind, and I mean 1 row back from the family of one of the competitors. And there's like 7 of them. And once it becomes apparent that they are related to one of the players, I have never rooted so hard for anyone in a sporting event whose name I don't know.
Well, because you want to get
up in that.
Well, you also want the cameras are going to shoot over, and they're going to shoot over to the family, and you're going to be caught in that crossfire. There's an assumption at that point when you're all like in it together that you're part of the traveling party, right?
Oh yeah. And look, I was, as mentioned, 11 a.m. So I may have had a honeydeuce or 2. Who knows? It's the US Open. The rules don't apply. I made sure
you're $50 in the hole by the.
Oh yeah, but I got the commemorative cups to show for it. And if we planned the show better, that's what I would have been drinking out of. But we didn't do that. So instead, it'll have to be Sportish mugs. Now, I made sure that I leaned forward at some point and was like, "Hey, we're all in. If you need to come to someone outside of the family for high fives, we are in your corner." And I give credit to this, what I believe was a German family. They totally embraced that. They were so excited that someone outside of the family would care about whatever their brother, son, cousin, whatever was doing. They were like, let's go. And that was super fun because there were maybe 200 people at the Grandstand court. So it was a very, very small, intimate gathering. You could hear everything. You could see everything. And then to sort of live and die with every point with the family of a competitor. It's like, oh, this is really fun.
Yeah. Well, my other favorite part is, at the end of the Open or the end of every match, they hit the balls up in the stands, and Elliot is convinced he's going to get it every time. I'm like, Elliot, there's a lot of people, and he's convinced that we're going to catch it every single time. But I love the Open. I love everything about it. Again, I think the COVID still it felt pretty normal. Unfortunately, like it felt a little too pretty normal, but it was nice to get back out there. I am looking forward to next year, when I'm sure by that time we'll be in another pandemic. So hopefully that one will not be transmitted by breathing, something like that.
One place where I have no memories from the US Open is the bathrooms. That may not be the case, Keith Strudler, for Tsitsipas because
Is that how you pronounce that?
Maybe. I don't know. I think
no,
so.
It's Sisyphus.
It's not Tsitsipas.
Oh boy, then Sisyphus? I really like Sisyphus, like they roll.
That doesn't sound like pass would be the Greek pronunciation, like Tsitsipas.
Well, if that is the case, then I really butchered a commentary today, WAMC, because I said Sisyphus no less than 10 times.
Whatever is
I asked a Greek friend. She told me it was fine. Was that
you learn who your friends are? However you pronounce his name. On multiple occasions, Keith Strudler, he drew the ire of his playing competitor by taking too long in the bathroom. Now, look, I do not blame our friend Tsitsi Fly. I blame the rules because the actual rules of tennis allow you to take a bathroom break for a, quote, reasonable amount of time. You
can take two per match.
And they don't limit for a reasonable amount of time. Anyone that has ever made a mistake with their lunch order knows that what a reasonable amount of time in the bathroom is can vary wildly from person to person and day to day.
So I'm gonna lay this out there. So I heard the same thing, and this really kind of became paramount in the first round, which was an unfortunately strong match against Andy Murray, who was obviously hadn't been playing, so wasn't ranked. So he's now playing a top ranked player. Right. And so they're playing each other. Please tell me that was first round, because otherwise I really butchered this commentary.
Also, do you say you pronounce it Murray and not Murray?
So Andy Murray's like, he disappears for the second time in between the fourth and fifth set. And finally, Andy's like, he's like talking out loud. Like he's going like, are you okay with this? Are you like, he's losing it a little bit, right? Now, I figure, because I didn't watch the match, and then Murray goes on to lose the fifth set. I figured this was like a 20-minute break or something like that. Turns out an exceptionally long break in the bathroom is 8 minutes. Now, I'm not going to get too much into this.
First of all, counterpoint, no, it isn't. Continue.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Andy Murray, they were furious that they were gone for 8 minutes, right?
Okay.
That's my point, right? So they consider Andy Murray and all the fans and everyone thought 8 minutes was an outrageous time. I'll tell you what.
Because 8 minutes, honestly, is a pleasure cruise. There's nothing. 8 minutes is a well-earned break.
8 minutes. 8 minutes is nothing. You can't even get through like the front page of the newspaper. You got to give yourself at least a chapter read or something like that. Like now, I would say it would be disturbing.
For those of you watching on For the Fans, FTFX.com or YouTube, Keith Strudler has sprung a leak. Yes, if you think we don't leave blood, sweat, and tears out on the field to put Sportish together.
What would be disturbing is when he was going to head into the locker room to go to the bathroom, if he went to the chair umpire and he said, "Excuse me, do you have a copy of The Economist?"
Those are not short articles. Do you believe that Sisyphus, our Greek friend, needed to take as long as he took in the bathroom, or is he employing some gamesmanship?
Oh, it sounds like, but 8 minutes is not a long time. You can, if someone were to do a rundown on things that need to happen in a hygienic way to get through, 8 minutes is pretty good. Although I will tell you, not to get too into it, the first marathon I ever ran, I had to take a pit stop in the middle, 2 minutes in and out. 2. Now, granted, it was on the clock, but
important question. Tennis is an international sport. The U.S. Open, contested by players from all over the world. Do you think the players' locker room has bidets?
He's like, no, I didn't have to go. I was just cleaning myself.
And would the presence of a bidet, would that increase or decrease the amount of time that you would need to spend during a break?
Well, it's going to make it long. Oh boy, that's a good question.
Comment down below whether you think it would speed up or extend the amount of time that it would take.
Also great. If he comes out after like 6 minutes and he goes to the chair up, he's like, I'm going to need some more toilet paper.
I also think it says a lot about our show that, to as best I can remember, the one question where instead of it just going opinion for opinion, thought for thought, the one thing that got you to pause for a second was, would the bidet make the trip shorter or longer? Like, that is the best question that's ever been asked on this show.
We'd have to have like a French person on here to really get to the bottom of that, an expat of sorts. So there were a few questions that got raised. Is what is he doing in there? Right. Exactly. So that's A. Now there's the question of, is he texting his coach or something like that? Right.
That would be a foul of the rules.
Foul of the rules. I have a very strong opinion about people who use phones in the facilities. Not a big fan of that. I've always found that to be disturbing and wrong. So nothing worse.
You're a Luddite. You're a Luddite.
So how do you like it when someone walks into a stall and whatever, your seat goes down, you hear it, and you're like, hey man, what's up? Do you like that?
No. If you're having an out loud conversation, you are the scum of the earth. But if you're scrolling through and reading on your phone, like that's just the world that we live in. That's the world that we live in.
Can you not? I mean, I think the hands are focused. Like, I don't think you think you've got other things to do.
You don't have a hands free? I think you're doing it wrong.
So at any rate, so there's a suggestion that he's changing his clothes, which seems to be the case, but apparently that makes you feel fresh. And so
that's not against the rules. You can do that. Players often change right on the court.
Yeah, but he wants to change the undergarments as well, apparently.
Interesting.
So it sounds like that's
happening. Little baby powder, freshen up.
No, so that's happening. Look, it is clearly gamesmanship, no question. It's no different than having the 8th leg cramp during a tournament and having to go see the doctor, right? Only you get to have the advantage of going inside of the bathroom at the same time. So I think that's clear. And now they're going to start to make rules, and I can't wait for these specific rules about what you're allowed to do in the bathroom.
Yes.
Or does someone have to come in with you? Is this going to be like the urine test? The person standing there with you.
The rules will create a very uncomfortable moment in the sport of tennis. And while we're on the topic of uncomfortable moments,
I have a solution. I have a solution to this. I've already told you what it is. Portalet on the court. I bet you no one wants to spend 8 minutes.
And I tell you what, now that we got the robot umps, it's a great chance to bring back the claps. Also brings new meaning to the folks that like to yell out, "We're number one" at sporting events. Now, since you derailed my wonderful segue, we will conclude this episode by talking about another very uncomfortable moment from a different country club sport. The Solheim Cup in women's golf was contested over the last weekend. It's like the Ryder Cup, but with women. LPGA caddy Ollie Brett works for the United States of America's Danielle Kang. Danielle Kang, on the last day of competition in singles on Monday, went head-to-head against Europe's Emily Pedersen. Now, Brett and Pedersen are dating. He's working for her opponent. And to add another layer of complexity, this is USA versus Europe. Ollie Brett, who is working for an American player, is European. That golf match for caddy Ollie Brett was fraught with peril at every turn.
That's interesting. Now, why would I don't have the names right? Why would the caddy not work for the person that they're dating?
I don't know, because the
Maybe
caddy
they're not
works.
Good.
Well, they're both very good. I would say Danielle Kang is probably better than Emily Pedersen. It is probably a better job to work for Danielle Kang. But it's very possible, and I believe Ollie Brett and Danielle Kang have been together for years. So it's very possible they've had a successful, fruitful working relationship. Maybe Ollie met Emily through his work with Danielle. So obviously at that point, it becomes very awkward to jump ship. Also, I don't think you necessarily want to work that close in that kind of a relationship with your significant other.
I can tell you that's the truth. Yeah.
Is a relationship of its own. So
got to be some distance. Now, who are you rooting for? That's the real question.
Well, that's the real question.
That's the real question. And it really comes down. Now, I actually think I'm going to go out on a limb here, because it all comes down to paycheck. It all comes down to paycheck. Obviously, as a caddy, you're getting a share of the earnings, correct?
Correct.
Right.
But however, in the Solheim Cup, this is contested for national pride, so there's no prize money at stake.
Well, let's imagine it's not.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say,
boy, we really are living that utopian city, aren't we?
Are we going to get to that?
No, we're going to run out of time.
But it's so great. They're creating a city from scratch.
No, they're not. No, they wrote a news article on how they want to create a city from scratch. They're not going to do it.
How much infighting will there be? All these people are like, we're all here to love each other. And after the first person does something that everyone likes, they'll be like, that guy is a dick. It's going to
utopia over.
So the thing is, here's the way I look at it. I think when you're dating, you want your boss to win because it's not shared revenue yet. You're kind of looking out for number one at that point, right? Once you're married, unless there's a prenup built into this thing, good idea, by the way, for the golfers, then you want your spouse to win because then you're really getting a bigger share of that money. And obviously you get more for the golfer than you would for the caddy. So I think that's something you hold out as the carrot, like, hey, when am I going to see a ring? Right. I'm not giving you my cheers until this happens.
Here's the important question. And this was bandied about on Twitter during this match. Was Ollie Brett the caddy? Was he in a no-win or a no-lose situation?
Has there been any romantic conjecture between, because the affair potential here is strong. It's strong.
I've never met them, so I don't know.
You understand that's the subtext. Like this is the beginning of every Lifetime movie ever, right?
Is it? I mean, I haven't watched a lot of Lifetime movies, but as best as I understand it, most take place in a small southern town where a doctor lady had to move back to care for her ailing grandfather. And that most do not take place in the world of professional women's golf. But again, I could be wrong.
But maybe we should write this. We should write. And it would be like, I'm trying to come up with a good name. Dogleg Love or something like that.
No. It's Caddy My Heart. Caddy My Heart is, of course, the name of the Lifetime movie that we're going to write.
It does almost write itself. I like that. I think it's a no-lose. Everyone wins.
Do you want to know who won the golf match?
No.
Emily Pedersen in Europe. So Ollie Brett lost professionally, won personally, just like all of you who watch this episode of Sportish. It's all the time we got. He's Keith. I'm Geoff. Hopefully we're back next week at some time. If not, you'll find us online, YouTube, ftfnext.com, wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you then. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Sportish. See you next time.